Hi Frederik, this is a video to give you feedback on your first written exercise in English. You will probably have seen that I have uploaded a revised version of your text on IceCore with some remarks and some corrections, etc. and commentary. What is going to happen in this video is that I'm going to kind of sum up both those comments and those corrections, and then give you my general impression of your text. And I'm going to be starting first with the overall organization and the structuring of the text, then get a little bit into more localized level, grammatical errors, kind of more detailed things like that, and then towards the end kind of sum it up and tell you what you should be doing for next time. So firstly, this text had a specific genre, and it had a specific place that it was going to be published. Namely, it's an article giving your point of view on this particular text by Frederik to be published in British Army Review. So it's important that you think about what expectations will a reader have for this type of text, and how can you meet those expectations and set yourself up to be a credible writer. In your introduction, you kind of start in the middle of everything. First of all, what is war? It's hard to discuss with a man who does not use the correct language for describing war. War is not just war. I don't mean that metaphorically, but legally the term is fluffy and not clearly defined. So you're assuming a lot there. First of all, who's the man you're talking about? Why have you taken on a discussion with this person in the first place? And then elaborate more on the topic or the angle you have here. So you want to talk about the legal framework concerning war, when is war a conflict, etc. And you're saying that, and you're dismissing Frederik based on the fact that he doesn't use the correct terminology or doesn't talk about it in those terms, and it's too fluffy, you say. So elaborate on this. Make your reader understand that this is your purpose and this is what you're going to do. And also, it would be really good if you want someone to read this to understand, why is this relevant? Someone is reading this publication because they're interested in military affairs, interested in the future of conflict. So we're looking at someone who is saying one thing and you have a different opinion, so you need to explain, what is he saying? This is written in 1999, so while your reader might be aware of him, you cannot expect that reader to know the text or to be able to remember it if they do know it. So you need to define, what is he saying? And in that, I'd like you to be very aware that if you want to be a credible writer, you have to be neutral in how he, in how you describe Frederik's arguments. So be very, it doesn't mean you have to agree with him, but you have to kind of describe his opinions and his main thesis in this text as neutrally as possible. And then you can take issue with it. So make sure you set up, what is the main argument? Why do I agree? If we can't understand the main argument, then we're not likely to follow you and think that it's reasonable that you agree. So that's the first thing. So make sure you set yourself up in a good way. And make sure that you give yourself a good starting point for people to follow your line of thought. Also, I would say that you begin with you address the legality or the legal framework for thinking about war. I do think you get a little bit off track throughout the text. And I think also you're taking on quite a task here. If you want to really, in a very short text that has to be readable and not like an academic text, it's a tough one to take on the ins and outs of the laws of armed conflict. So you're setting yourself quite a big task here, I would say, but I'm not sure that you stay on track throughout. So I'd like you to consider for next time how you can read this text, or the next text that you do, critically and with a reader's perspective, because that means, or should mean, that you are able to see if you are veering off, if you're going off on a tangent, or if there are places where this red thread is broken. That's where you need to kind of fix your text. If you have a reader perspective on that, it's easier to see, because we get so involved with our own text and how we write it and how we phrase it that sometimes it's impossible for us to quite be critical enough of our own text. So make sure that you have this a message that is unified, that you can recognize, that you kind of present that message in the beginning, and then you follow it through, and then you wrap it up towards the end. So you have this coherence. So that's to do with the structuring and how you think about your text, how you conceptualize your text. Getting into the writing, I've added line numbers to your text. I'd like you to remember to do that next time, because it means that if I want to refer to something specific in your text, I can give you a line number. So please do that. The one thing that I think is that works here is that you have a reasonably good vocabulary, and that you have, in general, a good command of grammatical structures. So that is a really good starting point. However, there is still some issues to do with precision. Even though you have a good vocabulary, sometimes you phrase your thoughts and your opinions in ways that are a little bit fuzzy or not too precise. So work with that also, that when you edit your text and you read it through, again, have this reader perspective. Is this clear? Am I expressing this point clearly? And another thing I'd like you also to remember is, I guess look into is using full stops. You tend to let your sentences run on instead of using a full stop and then starting a new sentence. And that creates this kind of weird confusion for the reader. It's like, okay, I'm not really sure what's going on. So you need to have this grammatical or instinctual sense for when a sentence ends. And I'm sure that you have that, but I think it's to do with whether or not you put a period or you put a comma. Often the case is that when there are issues like that, a comma substitutes a period, and we want that period to signal end of point, beginning something else. It's like the layout basically to signify when something is over, and you need to be able to recognize that. Okay, so in summation, frame your text, think of the reader, create coherence, work on precision, and work on full stops. And try, when you edit your text, to have this reader perspective when you read it through. I have given you a grade as well. If this is something you'd like to, if you're interested in having your grade, come and see me in class next time. My policy is that I give out grades to people who want them. If you don't want them, that's fine. You can focus on the things that need to happen in your text. For next time, that's how I prefer it, but I know some people find grades useful. So that's up to you. But I will see you in class. Bye.